Cheers and welcome to On Tap Brewers, the show that takes you behind the scenes of some of your guys' favorite breweries. My name is Brock, and today we're hanging out at Single Hill, located in Yakima, Washington. You can check these guys out on Facebook and Instagram at Single Hill Brewing. Thank you guys so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. How about you guys just kind of introduce yourselves and kind of just say what you do here on a day-to-day basis?
My name is Zach Turner. I'm one of the founders, and I guess I'm the head brewer.
Ty Paxton, co-founder, Positive Vibes Director.
Tristan Carosis. I guess I'm an assistant brewer here at Single Hill.
Casey Pitney. I'm an OG and the beer slinger here.
Awesome, cool. I'll start the show off kind of with you guys just kind of telling your, not story, but just your guys' tap room. If someone hasn't been here, kind of what can they expect when they walk through the doors? What have you kind of done intentionally to kind of make their experience kind of your guys' experience?
Yeah, I'll take this.
Yeah.
One thing that was really important to us was celebrating the agricultural heritage of Yakima. In the valley, we produce a third of the world's hops, and on top of that, we're a huge tree fruit producer as well, and among other just agricultural, the ag industry is huge here. Mm-hmm. And so one thing we wanted to do was incorporate a lot of those, somehow incorporate that. And so all of our tabletops, any piece of wood pretty much that you see in the tap room has some kind of history in the ag, in the ag industry. This table right here is from Harris Farms. Our bar is an old beam from the Peralt Farms hop kiln. It was built back in the 60s. So it was just one thing that we really wanted to, I mean, we're a tap room, but we also wanted to kind of be an educational, like, hey, look at what Yakima is made of, which I think not a whole lot of places have done that here locally. So it was something we wanted to do.
That's cool, yeah. And then you have like huge open sliding doors. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, we're pet friendly, family friendly. On a given Saturday, you'll see a lot of, the patio will be packed. There'll be people out on the grass, kids running around, some dogs. We set out some water bowls, things like that. So we wanted it to be very open. And for the most part, we attract a pretty eclectic group, just all walks of life.
Yeah, when we were hanging out, there's college students and then, the whole gamut of people just hang out here. And yeah, pets are definitely a huge thing that you can just tell when you walked in, which is super awesome. I've heard this place used to be like a tire center or something along the lines of those. Did the doors have anything to do with that, or did you guys put those in?
We put those in. There were a lot of overhead doors, 8 of them actually in the production space, which were replaced with newer doors and some windows. But this, we really wanted to create an indoor-outdoor atmosphere. It was originally a JCPenney auto tire shop.
Okay, yeah.
Back in the 70s, that was one of their little sister companies that they had, and this was one of those stores. Sold to, I believe, Firestone Walker, or Firestone, not Firestone
Just
Walker.
Firestone Tires, man.
That's a brewery.
Firestone Tires, yeah.
Thanks. Firestone Walker.
Yeah, it was a Firestone for a while, and then it was derelict for 20 years.
Yeah, you guys are right next
Totally
to the old mall. What are the streets? Where are we next to? Where are you guys located? I said Yakima, Washington, but
Yeah. So Natchez Avenue. That's actually a big part of it. We're right adjacent to one of the most historic boulevards and tree-lined boulevards in Yakima. Actually doing some research on the building and the history of this area. In the museum, we were able to find some old postcards of Natchez Avenue here.
From the 30s, probably, maybe the 1910s.
wow, that's crazy.
Going way back, actually. We have like 2 or 3 of some of the oldest buildings in Yakima right across the street.
Right, yeah, the seasons and stuff.
Yeah, 1920s,
Like right
30s brick buildings.
Yeah,
It's a pretty neat little section of Yakima that's sort of been forgotten for years and years and years.
Yeah. I've grown up in Yakima, so it's always been, you go over to do seasons, and then there's just this building across the street. And then I was so stoked when you guys came in and we saw work being done, and you hear it's going to be a brewery. Like that just sounds awesome as a local.
I think at first when people heard that we were coming in here, they were like, "Why?" And then when it was all said and done, and people started showing up after the first few weekends, I mean, you could just see people's eyes light up when they walked through the doors. Like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Which was really cool to watch.
Yeah, dovetailing off that, we did get some pushback or just some feedback of like, oh, you're in the ghetto, or you're in like not a very nice part of the neighborhood. But we didn't see it that way. We saw revitalizing a really nice historic part of downtown Yakima.
Yeah, for sure.
And helping to embrace the downtown core and hopefully expand on the core and grow it.
Yeah.
And since we haven't had hardly any issues with
big issues. Yeah. How many beers do you guys have on tap?
Tristan?
We have 18 taps. We carry a root beer and a cider. So we usually have 16 beers on tap at any given time. Yeah.
That's cool. How many beers would you say are, if someone comes in, months from now when they're hearing this podcast or whatever, they can come here and there's going to be this amount of beers on tap that are consistent, and then how many are kind of experimentals that you guys play with?
Right now we're up to about 8 beers. We're trying to keep on tap at all times. 2 of those are kind of rotating seasonals. We rotate our amber style beer and we rotate our dark style beer.
Okay.
Depending on whether it's winter or like basically hot or cold. So like something is a little bit heavier and maltier for the wintertime and something lighter and lower alcohol for the summer.
Is that hard to juggle as like a brewery, or is that pretty?
Yeah, it gets more complicated for sure when you want to keep the same brands around all the time.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Is that just with like production of ingredients, or just trying to keep it in the back of your head all the time and on the calendar?
Yeah, it's just trying to nail the dates and not have too much inventory around.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys have cornhole, and you have food options.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
So, when we first started our market research and starting a brewery, looking at all aspects of existing breweries and things, breweries that were successful, et cetera, one element obviously was food. And when you're drinking, if you have a couple beers, it'd be nice to have some food, and hopefully also that maybe might promote a couple more beers. And so we wanted to have food, but we also knew that it wasn't our skill set or expertise. So we decided to go the food truck route. So any given day, we have a staple food truck on site. They're called Five Salsas.
Yeah.
Tacos to quesos, burritos, molitas, you name it.
How'd that relationship kind of come to be?
I was feeling pretty good at Fresh Hop Ale Festival in 2016.
As most people do. They feel pretty good at Fresh Hop, yeah.
And I was in the food vendor area, and I saw a taco truck, and I ate a couple tacos, and I realized how perfectly simple but and authentic these tacos were, and something that we hoped to also embrace here in the culture is we have a large Latino heritage and Latino population here in Yakima, and so it seemed like the perfect fit. So I gave him a business card, and the rest is history.
The other thing we didn't really realize that too is not only the tacos good quality tacos, but they were capable of slinging 2,000 plus tacos in an evening.
Yeah, that's important.
Which is what
with how much people you have here.
Proved. And
yeah.
Here they can get slammed and keep the line down.
Keep it going. And
they're awesome people. It was run by Jose and Vanya, a young married couple.
Yeah.
And they do fantastic work for us.
Yeah, they're great.
We're really, really pleased that they're part of this.
Yeah. They're a great addition. I've come here multiple times before doing the show, and they're something I look forward to along with just the beer.
Yeah.
Talking about your guys' brand, you guys kind of have a merch. You want to talk me through kind of some of the processes of, kind of hat styles you pick out? How often are those on rotation?
Yeah. So we are actually still establishing that and trying to figure things out. But one thing that we're looking to do is doing short runs of hats. And thankfully, Casey has a lot of experience doing merchandising. And so him and I have worked together, and he's taken a pretty big lead in that. And what do you?
Are you looking at trends or Casey? How do you guys determine that?
Well, I mean, I definitely we're traveling quite a bit, different breweries and just different markets, different areas, and so not only that, but just like seeing what people wear, right? Mm-hmm. Something that we can have on our shelves that people wear outside of breweries and also within breweries, but that kind of just fits into people's styles. So you'll see some different styles of hats on our shelves to kind of fit all demographics of people, which is really cool. But something that we've been doing is, you'll see this hat that Ty's wearing right now. It's what we call a one-off hat, mm-hmm. and where I just buy a hat where I think is really cool, and I have an idea. It's just one style, and we start wearing it, and I just kind of see what people's reactions are. Mm-hmm. Also, the one I'm wearing, and if
mine too.
That one too.
That's awesome.
And if I get really cool reactions and from people, then I put that on paper, and then Ty and I talk about it, and we say, all right, let's do 50 hats. So right now in our kind of initial first year, usually when there's a new hat that comes out, there's 50. So if you like it, you should probably buy it.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like we're trying to make it special.
Yeah.
This is only going to be around for so long.
Right. Sure. I'm super into that story.
It's kind of fun. I mean, the hat you're wearing, that's one of them.
Yeah.
And as far as shirts and apparel, we are new. We're not even a year old. And so there's a lot of ideas spinning up here about really fun, creative shirt designs, et cetera. But really just trying to drive home more of like just the logo and the brand and the color.
Yeah, I've heard you guys talk about the color and just how important that is. I think that's super cool coming from a business owner, like just how on point you guys are with how things look and just everything has to be the same, which makes complete sense. But it's kind of inspired me as far as a business owner to kind of like look at that type of stuff through that lens, which is super rad.
Yeah, we're also still learning.
Yeah,
a lot.
It's awesome. So we kind of have all flights in front of us. What we want to do on tap is a flight with the Brewers. So I asked them to pick out a flight of beers that they always have on tap or experimentals. So I let them completely choose that. So we're just going to start with the first beer. What are we going to be trying?
This is East Side IPA, and the name refers to the fact that we're on the east side of Washington. So it's sort of Washington when most people think like, oh, hey, you're from Washington. Like, well, are you from DC or the state? Well, we're from the state, okay. And then the second question is, well, man, it's so rainy there. And you're like, actually, that's just the west side. That's Seattle, basically. I grew up on the west side in Bellingham, so I'm very familiar. Then I lived in Portland, so I spent most of my life in the rain, and now I live on the east side of Washington, and it's dry here. So one of the things we want to do with the name of the beer is kind of capture the spirit of the east side of the mountains and help promote the fact that this is a really great place.
Yeah.
So that was sort of where the name comes from for the beer. The beer itself, it's an IPA. It's our flagship IPA. We sell the most of this one. And it's one we've definitely brewed the most. We put the most work into like refining and tweaking and changing over time. Like starting from my basement with our pilot system, which is like a little one barrel, which we fired up like a year and a half before we opened maybe. Mm-hmm. And then up till yesterday, I brewed another batch of East Side. This is the last batch of East Side, and I tasted this in the morning. I brewed the last batch of East Side to kind of make sure it was kind of where I wanted it to be, and then we brewed it again.
He comes home from a 6-day backpacking trip in Oregon and brews East Side on Sunday.
And I came in on Saturday night at 10:30 p.m. to try the beers and make sure we were ready to go for Sunday. So that's East Side, and maybe these other guys want to tell us what it tastes like.
Yeah. So one of the really cool things that I love being a part of Single Hill is Zach's brewing style. Mm-hmm. Zach brews extremely clean tasting beer.
Yeah, for sure.
I say this about a couple other breweries, but you can pretty much close your eyes and just point, and you're going to like it.
Yeah. Yeah, Yakima is a very hop-centric, obviously, hop capital. And your guys' it doesn't like always weigh on your tongue, which is something that I've always like associated with you guys when I come here, is like it's not going to be like a super heaviness.
A lot of time, people will come into the tap room and say, well, I don't like hoppy. Right. And automatically we attribute that as they don't like bitter beers. Yeah. Because they're kind of, those are two different things. And I can say, well, why don't you try this? This is very hoppy. It's not bitter though. And a lot of times people will say, like, I don't like hoppy, and I'll at least try the East Side. Yeah. And they'll get a pint of it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe I do like hop flavors. Yeah, right. Yeah. Not all hoppy IPAs have to be 65 IBU. Right. So that's one thing that is, I think, a pretty distinctive about this beer.
Yeah, my brewing tradition, I guess I can call it that. My brewing tradition goes back to Odell Brewing Company in Colorado, which is where I worked for about 4 years up until about 2012. And their IPA was one of those early ones that didn't focus on bitterness. It was very, very hop flavor forward, fruity, pleasant, really refreshing. It didn't like bite you. Yeah, and you could just drink a lot of them. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. And to make an IPA and try to make it be the IPA that stands out is very, very challenging right now. So the market's changing. The market's changing really fast, and the competition is pretty intense. There's amazing beer out there right now. So our goal is just to make this stand up, like amongst the beers that we love to drink when we go out and drink beers.
For the people that are only listening and not watching on YouTube, can you talk to me about color profile just a little bit, and some of the ingredients that you kind of used, and what the thought was behind that when you were trying to come up with an IPA that stood out?
So East Side is it's like a 7% alcohol IPA. It's a little bit orangey from Munich malt primarily, and then other than that, it's a pretty low level of haze. Given that the trend right now is really hazy beers, so this is kind of on the low end of haze, but not a crystal clear filtered beer. None of our beer is filtered, so we do our best to control it, and we love it to have a glow. Like when you hold it up to a light, like it doesn't stop the light like a hazy beer, but it lights up. The light comes in, it catches, it pops. That's what we're shooting for. So when I'm on the brew deck looking through the windows of the tap room and I can see a pint of it on the table, it just sits there and literally glows. That's what we're shooting for look and feel, with nice lacing.
You said you were in the basement. Was this one of the ones that came out of that?
Working on the IPA recipe, that was one of the priorities for doing pilot brewing before we opened. So we did quite a few months of that, and then we actually even packaged all that up in growlers and then gave it to friends and asked for feedback.
Check it out. What do you think? Yeah,
that's awesome. Tests.
So making one of your earlier beers, how kind of going to how you guys got started. You want to talk about kind of where the idea came from? What was the process like to get to? You're coming up on the 1 year. This podcast is actually going to be dropping on their 1 year. So if you're listening to this, that's happened.
Anniversary.
Happy anniversary to us.
Anniversary. Cheers.
Clink.
So what's the story behind Single Hill? Why is it called Single Hill? Where did the idea come from? How did you guys meet?
Yeah, I'll probably start that.
Yeah.
So for me, I've been making beer since I think I was 18. I was going to college in Portland, Oregon, and picked up homebrewing and kind of got a little deep into it, to the extent that by the time I was done with school, I had like a barrel and a half brewery in my garage, and I was kegging everything, distributing it to friends and stuff, never selling it. And then, no, for reals. School actually funded it, so it was all good. And then after that, I was a biologist, so I kind of pursued that for a little while, trying not to get into brewing. But then I moved to Colorado, ended up at Odell Brewing Company, and ran their lab and managed quality there for a while. And sometime during that, I it became clear, or at least I talked to enough people about it that I needed to start a brewery at some point in time. But it still took a decade, from starting to work in the industry professionally to starting a brewery. And I moved to Yakima solely to work in the hop industry. So I came here to work at Hop Union, and then Yakima Chief, and then Yakima Chief Hop Union, and now Yakima Chief. I was their quality manager and then their technical manager. So Single Hill has been a really long time coming for me.
Yeah.
As I pursued different chapters. Only really two really big chapters. One really focused on brewing and production brewing, and one really focused on hops and raw materials. And coming to Yakima was also fortuitous because it's a great place to start a brewery, and I think it needed what we're bringing in terms of a place, the community space that we're doing. A lot of people make a nice beer, but we make a really nice place as well. That's one of our goals.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago or so, it became apparent that it either needed to happen or it was never going to happen. And then I started hunting around for good partners and thought back in time about friendship with Ty and some conversations we had had several years before about maybe starting a brewery soon after we moved to Yakima. And then we just started that conversation, and from there we made a plan.
Yeah. What was the conversation like between you guys?
Yeah,
are we gonna do this?
I'll chime in a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually met Zach officially at a cider pressing party, and then he helped me later on, put it in a carboy and bottle it up later. And as a, my background, I was a professional musician for a while. I played a lot of breweries. I did the McMinimans, the route, a couple of the other big fun breweries to play at, and in general, just in college, really got into craft beer. And my skill set I bring is marketing, and I would always be thinking of oh, that'd be such a cool beer name, or come up with oh, what if we named a brewery this, and just it always popping in my head. And so it was clear to me that at least on the periphery that I would love to do this someday. And so crossing paths with Zach was very, very fortuitous in terms of just our two skill sets coming and colliding together a little bit. And the conversation was October of 2016 at a brewery, actually.
Bellbreaker.
At Bellbreaker.
Nice. Yeah, naturally.
Neutral territory.
Yeah. And we had the conversation before in passing, but this was more of a sit down hey dude, I'm really gonna do this. You wanna do it? And also I've got a really pretty kick-ass building. And I'm and I was at quite a crossroads in my career as well.
Yeah.
And it was all about timing, really.
Timing's everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you had the building.
No, not leased, but identified, and we had begun. We, being my wife and I, had begun talking with our landlords about
Gotcha.
what it would look like, what it might cost, and kind of just feeling out the situation a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You had a building. You had a conversation.
Yep.
What do we call
Yep.
this thing? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well,
I had that too.
Yeah, Zach had that as well.
Yeah.
Names came to the table.
Right.
And
You had a lot, naturally, I'm sure.
Names came to the table. This one stuck out to me. Like a sore thumb. It was it's Single Hill. Just the behind it, what it means, what we're trying to build in Yakima. It seemed like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the name Single Hill, I guess its origin story for us is my friend Joe Moorfield, who runs a brewery in Austin called Pine House. We used to work together at Odell. He was out here for a visit, him and his partner Crystal, and we were just traveling around. He wanted to come to Yakima, not during harvest time when it was relatively relaxed, and just sort of get a feel for the place and go talk to some farmers and things. So we went out and toured some farms, and we went to the experimental hop fields at Peralt Farms. And experimental hop fields are often called Single Hill fields. The reference is basically an experimental variety. They planted in a hill. It's not really very much of a hill, but like each plant, they just call it a hill, and each one's got a little coordinate. So if you go to a Single Hill field, like it'll be kind of like battleship coordinates. There's 50 rows by 500 plants, and so it's row 52, like hill 68 or something, and that's a single hill. And from those, if you're a hop breeder, like you'll evaluate all those individuals and eventually pick one that ends up being like a variety that's amazing and people want to make a lot of beer out of. So that's the root of the word.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
while my buddy Joe was here, and after we'd visited the Single Hill fields, we were driving back and just sort of bantering. And he's like, that'd be a pretty good like name for a brewery, and sort of filed it away. And that's sort of where we brought it back to. And it also, for us, the name captures a few other things too. Like there's the experimental hop variety thing, where hops come from, because each hop is actually like, it's a clone of that one hill that started that one time, or that one cross. Every hop that comes after it is the same thing. But it also means, it's a big reference to place, so where we are, like your Single Hill, your home, where you come from. So the origin of things, whether it be the raw materials or where you live. So for us, like the kind of mosaic pattern in our logo is sort of, if you're flying over a bunch of fields in a plane and you're looking down at that kind of mosaic patchwork. So capturing that kind of like agricultural geography, and then sort of the shape of it as you're looking at the mountain profile of it. We use Mount Adams as a reference for us a lot, because from the Yakima Valley, if you're looking west, like you'll see Mount Adams up there. So that's sort of like the other thing. It's very characteristic of the Northwest. So we have like 3 scales going on: the tiny little one hill, one plant, one cross, Single Hill. We have all the agricultural landscape, and then we have these big volcanoes of the Northwest.
That's awesome.
So I really love the name because of all of that. It represents to me all the things I love about this place.
So. We obviously evaluated pretty hard every single name.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it was just a no-brainer because of all the inner workings of the definition to us. And then going back to people saying, well, it's you guys are planning a brewery in the ghetto, and it's like, well, no, we're not. I mean, we're planning it in one of the most historic places in Yakima, and we're going to grow this Single Hill,
Right.
And like someday you'll see what's happening here.
Yeah,
Sure.
For sure. And it's evident just a year later. Like it's a mecca. People come here for lunch and everything. That's awesome to see the idea to what it's become.
Yeah.
So you have a name, you have a brand, you have a building. And then you guys have already talked about Yakima was a big deal as far as like putting this furniture and this vibe in. What was that process like? Were you communicating with just a bunch of different people? Was it hard to find the materials? What was the hardest thing, I guess? Maybe that's what I'm asking.
Of the startup process, or like building the tap room?
Building a tap room. I mean, you could talk about the startup, but I guess my brain instantly goes to, I'm looking at this building and just...
The tap room's pretty awesome in the regards of, we know everybody who pretty much did any of the work in the tap room, whether it was us doing demolition or our contractors helped. They did some of the work in here. We hired some folks to like do things we didn't have skills for, like grind the floors down and polish them and stuff like that. But like other than that, our buddy, we paid him too, but he made the tables. And then like the wood from here, like we went to an old chicken barn that had collapsed with a chainsaw and like cut it down beams and stuff.
Yep.
Like you guys did?
Yeah, and Ty's dad.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My old man came and
Our buddy Craig, who's
our
his
friend
chicken
Craig.
barns.
Wow.
And then other people just brought us things to some extent.
Yeah.
Like the beam over there came from Hollingberry and Sons Hops, and I don't even, did we pick it up? Did they drop it off? They might have even dropped it off.
No. Me and my old man went and hauled that thing out of there, and it's a lot heavier than it looks.
We got beams
looks
from
pretty
Roy
heavy.
Farms. They dropped that off. That was good.
Yeah, Roy Farms beams.
The beam that the bar is made of, that was so big we had to they hauled it out and chopped it up with a chainsaw, and we brought it to a lumber mill, and then milled it, chopped it in half, folded it out, so like the whole bar is made from one piece of wood, basically.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. My cousin built the back bar. Our awesome machine shop down the street did all the stainless work. So
Yeah,
it's really fun space.
Yeah.
It's very cooperative. I mean, a lot of
Yeah, it
friends
was
and
like
family.
a community effort is what it sounds like.
And lots of volunteers.
Lots of volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
How many
we
people laid papers?
yeah,
Like, there's a lot of people.
yeah. Well, it was probably like a party of like maybe 20.
Wow.
Yeah, a mutual friend of
That's
ours
the outside
is
area.
a mason.
It's
and
all that.
He helped
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
He,
That was the first day you came to help.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
You and your
First
You
brother.
and
day-
your brother.
Yeah, first day I came to help was me and my brother laid pavers
Yeah.
and the posts for the fence.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it
great.
was very. There was our tribe came together, and it was pretty remarkable to see.
Yeah. How about your guys' brewery that's just behind me? Like, how did you? I don't even know where to begin when you start buying tanks that big and stuff.
Yeah, so the brewery space, well, in terms of the equipment, most of it's made in Washington or Oregon. We went with Mark's Metalcraft, Mark's Metal and Design. Shoot. Sorry, Mark's. Everybody knows your name is Mark's. For the brew house, and then 2 of the fermenters, and then we went with Northwest Metal Design for our experimenter, which I don't know we can talk about later if you feel like it. 3 little small tanks, and then we've got a little bit of used equipment that we sourced various places to round out the package.
Yeah. We were in there filming you guys working and stuff, and you kind of talked about how just everything was set up.
Yeah, so this was super fun for me. 'Cause while I'm not an engineer, I really enjoy that aspect of things. So I got pretty involved in the brew house. What's that?
So your wife is.
My wife's an engineer. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. She designed our tank automation system, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But in terms of brew house, it was super fun for me to be able to have an opportunity to pretty much completely lay out and customize the system. One of the advantages of going with a more local manufacturer, you can go work with them directly, go visit the shop. You know, they may not always be super pleased that you're hanging around all the time, but like, it is nice to be able to go like see the equipment being built and like have input throughout the process. And we customized it a little bit to our liking, my liking, I guess, to be able to do some things with hops in particular, like low temperature whirlpools. We have an extra heat exchanger for that, and also the extra heat exchanger is really good for doing kettle sours and things. We customized a skid of 5-barrel fermenters we call the experimenter. They're hard piped together into one piece, so we can basically fill them as one unit. That's one of the really unique aspects of what we can do in our brewery. It's not like the most complicated thing to do, but I haven't seen it executed in a brewery before that doesn't have like some research aspect to it. So we use it to develop recipes, try things out, do little trials, play with yeast, play with hops, that kind of thing. So
Very cool. So where do you guys come in the story? I mean, we kind of heard Casey, you're doing pavers and such.
Yeah, Tristan actually, going back to the OG days when we were in the basement of Zach's basement. That's when I met Tristan in a basement.
Yeah, I helped. Essentially, when I met these guys, I was helping package what was then Zach's homebrew on his like 1.5 barrel system. And I'd been working at Hollingberry and Hoff and Sons in the lab, and was transitioning out of that, and was hoping to get into exactly what Single Hill is. So we hit it. We hit it off right away, and essentially from like that day, I was at this building every day, demoing and like just making sure.
Just getting it off
was,
the ground.
Yeah, and I was pretty excited from the moment that I set foot in this place and like talked to these guys about what they were doing. So, so since then, I've been, part of, and very proud to be part of Single Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it was super fun when Tristan showed up and basically spent the latter half of the winter of 2018 with us. A mutual friend of ours kind of vouched for him and said, I think you could get along with Tristan. Like, it'll be good. Like, he's got a lot of time on his hands. He's really dedicated.
Awesome. Yeah.
And he was.
Thanks.
Ty and I took him to Portland to go check out the equipment while it was under construction, and we had a good time down there, and that was essentially the interview.
Yeah.
We started paying Tristan a few months after that. around the time we started paying ourselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
We quit our day jobs. We should start maybe start paying ourselves, which was a blessing, but it was awesome. Yeah, Tristan is definitely an OG, and then Casey, like I said, well, actually, originally going back to the food truck thing, I was looking pretty hard for talent, and this guy was beginning to build his own food truck. That's another thing that Casey's passionate about, is being a chef, and met with him about that, and then kind of threw me a curveball, like maybe a month later or something, just shot me a text and said, hey, you know what, I'm actually really interested in whatever you got going on there at Single Hill. I don't know if the food truck thing, and I mean, such a genuine, solid dude with integrity. It was a no-brainer that
absolutely.
I wanted to flirt with that conversation, and so Casey came along, and he stepped up.
I was I was running Norms at the time, and then we had started talking about things, and I started coming and helping, and I came on part-time, and then it wasn't part-time. We had a lot to finish in a very short period of time, and I just kind of just dove in. And, it's been a blink of an eye since.
Yeah. Yes, the core, it seems like it's the jump-in guys, when it was getting off the ground.
Yeah, we're missing one.
Yeah.
We're missing several,
Yeah.
I would say. But we do have another full-time
Taproom manager,
taproom manager. Yeah, our clubhouse captain, T.
Another
Shout out to
vital part of the whole success.
Yeah.
of Single
Awesome.
Hill.
Yeah, she runs. She holds it down in the tap room, scheduling, and we do events and things like that. So it's obviously a big part of what we do here is our environment, and she does a really great job.
Yeah, she does
that.
an awesome job. You guys have events and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Super active.
Yeah.
So T came on right when we first opened the doors.
Yep.
With several other people as well. But if you know T, she's got the good vibes.
Yeah,
She's got those good vibes.
She's got those good vibes.
And I'm seeing you guys on Facebook, and it's like snow days for people, and you're like, "Hey, Single Hill's open," and it's her, photo of her.
Yeah. If everyone knows T, they want to be here. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it was pretty.
I think half the people come to their tap room
Because of T. Yeah.
Her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I come to work every day.
That's awesome. Cool. So let's go to the next beer on the flight. What do you got next for us?
So this one is called Citizen Grained, and the name is a pun, obviously, Citizen Kane.
Right. Yeah.
But the key here is the grain. So while East Side was all about hops and making a really beautiful IPA, Citizen Grain, its story is really around malt. And, well, it's sort of true because it's a beautiful balance.
I was gonna say it's not a super malty beer.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So this is a dry hop Pilsner.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the hops come in. This has been fun for us to develop. It's a play on one of our mainstays called Work Beer, which is a low ABV Pilsner, basically a nice sessionable beer for working. You gotta
cut the grass.
Gotta get some stuff done.
Have a work beer.
And then Citizen Grain is basically an evolution of that. This started with 2 different collaboration beers, actually. So we did one with Balebreaker last harvest in 2018. It was called Per Diem, and it was fresh hopped with a bunch of laurel and a little bit of, mostly fresh hopped with laurel, a little bit of Centennial to back it up. It was beautiful, delicious, and it went really fast. It was great. So then we incorporated that into another collaboration beer that we did last January for the Cascadia Grains Conference. And we did that with a brewery up in Spokane called Whistlepunk. And then we also did it with a malting company in Spokane called Link Malt. And the backstory for the malt on this goes back even further to about this time last year, maybe even a couple months ago last year. Our friend Neil, who lives down in Sunnyside and farms with his dad, he planted 5 acres of barley for us, a variety called Explorer. And then he harvested that. We got it malted in Spokane at Link, and then we brewed it with Link to make the first batch of Citizen Grain. So this beer is really cool because it is 100% Yakima Valley ingredients. You know, the malt was grown here.
Wow.
The hops were grown here. We made it here. The malt turned out beautiful. Like, I think everyone's relatively hesitant if they've ever had a chance to like grow malt and have it malted for them, like really small scale. Like, I don't know. No one knows what they're doing with really small malting yet. It seems like. So I was a little bit nervous to try brewing with it as a 100% beer, but it's basically 100% our malt, our Explorer barley, grown by our friend, malted by Link, now our friends up there, and well, I think we love it. I love it. Like,
it's pretty much like everybody comes to work every day and it's like grab the Citizen Grain if they have time to have a beer.
It's a brewer's beer, I would say. Like, it's light in alcohol, so it's easy to drink when you're inundated with booze all the time.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly refreshing. Like, you can't really help but drink it like quickly. I think I've got one in my pint glass here. I think he's got one in his pint glass.
I got one in
his pint glass. So clearly it's a favorite around the brewery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super smooth. It's super clear.
I would just say, like, I mean, it's also just got like a lovely hop profile. I mean, like the Laurel and the Centennial, but I think in particular the Laurel just gives it this incredible, strong and yet subtle hopping note to it that just kind of rounds the entire beer off.
Yeah, just a crisp ball.
I mean,
crispy ball.
Just a crisp ball. Just a crisp ball.
Sure.
hashtag crisp ball.
Hashtag crisp.
But very crispy, floral, lemony, refreshing, just clean and nice.
Just the right, so for a
I mean, it's just
for a Pilsner, like just the right amount of bitterness on the finish there, like.
Yeah.
And I speaking of, we're all still learning here. Like, I'm still learning beers. Just passed my Cicerone beer serving certification, which
Seriously?
is awesome.
Wow. That's impressive.
But learning about the history of beers has been eye-opening for me personally.
Yeah.
And if you're going to market a product, you should probably know everything about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it makes me appreciate beers like this that much more.
Did you talk about percentage and everything?
Oh, it's around 5%, 4.8 or something.
Yeah, it's a lighter one.
5.5.
Oh, 5.4.
I think we.
Sweet.
Yeah. Maybe got bumped the last batch. Got bumped up a little bit. Yeah. I think often dry hop pilsners can maybe like turn into, I don't know, maybe like just like a pale ale. Mm-hmm. If you get, there's too much hop character kind of dominating it.
Yeah.
But I think this would be like for me, an incredible example of the delicateness of a pilsner with the delicateness of those particular hops I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so the hope is with this beer, we brew it until we run out of malt. We ended up with about 8,000 pounds of it. So we don't make a ton of beer, so that should last us for a few more months, and then it will go away for next winter, and then we'll have another farm, another malting company,
Gotcha.
And that will be the malt that we'll use for Citizen Grain in 2020.
Wow. You heard it here, guys. Drink up. Because it's got a shelf life.
Yeah, limited.
That's awesome. So talking about, these two beers, like what's the process for you guys? Like, so, hey, you know what? Let's make a new one. Like, how does your brain work as far as, you talked about local ingredients, you talked about, clarity, and you guys obviously have, not a super hop, heavy on your tongue type vibe to you guys. Like, how do you guys determine, like, what you're gonna make?
I think at this stage, we kind of look at what holes to fill on them. We have a diverse set of beers. Like I said before, we have 16 taps across a lot of different styles. We try to please everyone that walks in the door because no one likes the same beer.
And Yakima's not a beer nerd town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So
we
it's like light beer. Well, I mean, dominantly, I would say it's like light beer and hoppy beer. It's like the two main, what people are looking for, usually, here. But we're beer nerds. And so we like to make
Everything.
Yeah.
So like I guess what I was saying before is like at this point in time, we kind of look at what holes exist in our menu, and try to keep some exciting examples of those beers when we're deciding what to brew next. But initially, like when we started out, it was brewing an IPA that matched what we want an IPA to be at Single Hill. Also, we started out with 2 very light beers, work beer, cerveza, 2 of our standard beers. We also started out with kettle sour, and we continue to have a number of kettle sours on the menu that are all very approachable and not overly sour, but tart. And we can talk about that the next beer on the taster. But yeah, I mean, but otherwise, other than that, like we brew with the season somewhat too. And it's becoming warm again, so we do want to keep beers on the menu that are easy drinking but exciting beers in warmer weather. So
we've been also learning as we've started to get out there in the market in wholesale. We're in a couple handfuls of places in Seattle now, Tri-Cities, Yakima, Cleon, Ellensburg, those places, and expanding. We've learned that there's certain things that the market wants, and so we're kind of moving and grooving to what that is telling us.
Right. Yeah. You want to sell what people are liking and digging. Yeah.
Which has definitely been a challenge.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a healthy challenge, and we're learning as we go. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, you guys are playing with yeast in there. We got some clips of the different fermenters and stuff you got in there. What's the thought process behind having those in the house and playing with those?
So yeah, what you're talking about is our experimenter that I mentioned earlier. Right now we have work beer. It's our Pilsner in all 3 of those 5-barrel tanks, exact same batch of wort, and then we pitched it with 3 different yeasts. So, often when we were going down the path of like making a new beer, we run it through the experimenter first because it means we yield about 5 barrels, which is a pretty easy amount of beer to go through in the tap room, even if it's not like the most amazing thing. But people will enjoy it. So that's kind of what we're doing here.
I personally love the experimental stuff. If you're telling me like this is here for a keg or something, I'm like, yep, give me that because I want to taste the thing that's not going to be here tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah. So once the novelty runs off, like it's gone.
Yeah. Right.
And if it's amazing, then we'll make it again. Or we'll take lessons learned and make another recipe.
Basically.
Yeah. So right now in the experimenter, we're kegging it off tomorrow. We'll have a work beer fermented with our standard yeast, and then 2 different ones, a Kolsch and a Pilsner yeast. That's different. And then we're actually going to release tomorrow a little blind tasting flight of those 3.
Oh, cool.
Kind of every Tuesday we do a thing called the Secret Tap, where it's really only regulars know about it. And
not anymore.
Yeah, well, if you're here, you can come in and ask. It's not like we're not trying to prevent people from finding out. We're just not helping you find out.
Yeah,
so, thanks for listening.
Advertise. Yeah.
Come and grab a Secret Tap.
Yeah, we have 17 taps actually.
Correct. Okay.
So tomorrow we're going to do that as a little Secret Tap flight. And right there, I just wanted to get a sense for like how different is work beer from a really traditional Pilsner or from a Kolsch, because I don't think it's either of those exactly. We call it Pilsner, but it's a little bit in between. And it's been a really fun experiment for me. We worked with Imperial Yeast on that for those strains, and they helped us out a little bit getting those.
From my perspective, it's been a lot of fun watching Zach and Tristan, but now I know why Zach co-engineered and built the experimenter.
Yeah.
I kind of got it from the beginning, but now over the course of a year now, I've been able to see. And when you brew a beer, like there's many breweries out there that have a beer called, Mosaic Pale. But obviously there's a lot of variables in the brewing process. And so the experimenter allows for taking a base control batch, essentially, of beer and then being able to distinctly being able to showcase if it's a yeast or a hop. Let's just say hops, but like Mosaic, Simcoe, Citra, whatever.
Right.
And you know that because you have that base control batch of original brew, you're just tasting the difference of the hops there. And it's really opened my eyes up to the chemistry and the experimentation behind this guy, what he's got going on back there. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, those are all the same beers. I mean, while you're playing with those, do you have other beers in the back of your head, like, you know, like this might be something that works with this, or is it all about that one style, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, whatever's in the tanks could be anything.
Right.
We've done, I don't know, we're a year in, so we've probably done about 10, maybe 12 batches through the experimenter. And so this round is all based on work beer. The last round was based on East Side, and we made an East Side recipe for one of those with a couple recipe changes that we wanted to kind of like experiment with. And then we made 2 different plays on East Side, one that we're actually going to re-release in 2 weeks. It has a bunch of guava in it, and then the one that we used another yeast strain to make a really, really juicy beer. And then next, actually Wednesday, I think I'm going to do the same thing, another batch of East Side through there, but then do 3 different yeast strains on it. Make one a Brut, make one with some Kveik, and then one, I forget what the other one is, but something or other. So it's super fun. We started out just doing hops mostly, so the first like 6 batches were probably different experimental hops. And being in Yakima, like our buddies just run the hop companies.
Yeah, for sure.
Or like run the hop breeding stuff, you know. So
Yakima grows beer.
Right. Yeah. We grow your beer. Yeah.
Yeah, and
You're drinking it probably.
Given where I worked
from
before,
here in some sort.
Connections aren't too bad, so we have access to some things when we want to do those kind of trials, and it's a nice thing for the. We hope it's a nice thing for the breeding companies and the hop companies too, to have an opportunity to showcase an individual hop that might be new or something they want to promote and market, because we can put it on tap, we can call it out, we can share it with people. So probably around hop harvest, we'll be doing a lot more of those things once the brewing community comes back and they want to like experience new hops or different hop ways of processing hops or something. We'll get back into hops. But.
We did like 6 different fresh hop beers on the experimenters last harvest.
We did 9.
9. We did 9 different fresh hop beers.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What does that mean? Like, so for fresh hop beers?
Yeah. So when during the month of September, late August and September is when that's hop harvest time. That's when hops are harvested, and during that time, in the Pacific Northwest, it's special as well as like the Willamette Valley and Idaho too. But right here, it's incredibly awesome to be in the Pacific Northwest as a brewer because you get access. It's just a few hours drive to the Yakima Valley, and you can actually get these hops that are literally just picked, and you can throw them in your beer. And so it's traditionally, when hops are processed, they are picked, but they are also dried. They're kilned to preserve them over the course of the year or a couple until they are used in the process. But the difference in flavor of a fresh, green, wet hop to one that has been kilned is quite incredible. And it's a unique opportunity. It comes about like once a month or 1 month a year, where brewers get to brew beer with like this incredibly raw ingredients.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I mean, I hear it all the time, especially in Yakima. It's like, oh, it's fresh, the fresh hops.
Yeah.
There's some compounds that don't like get volatilized by the whole killing process that survive into that beer when you throw a bunch of fresh hops in. It's just, that's part of the fun is people, you never really know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
So like, that's why brewers are so excited during harvest time when they can, and particularly in the Pacific Northwest, when they can drive down and get a truckload of fresh hops and then make a incredibly unique beer with those.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why it's so, I guess, like hard to explain is because it is so incredibly unique in like in the ways that different brewing procedures, and then you add that wet
uncured
into it. It can add all kinds of interesting elements.
Yeah. So jumping right into the last beer that you guys picked out for us on your guys' flight, what do you got for us?
So this one is Raz Rocket Chip, and we have another beer called Lemonade Rocket Chip that is basically the origin story for Raz Rocket Ship. This one came out of the experimenter. We took Lemonade Rocket Ship, which is a kettle-soured Berliner Weiss type beer, and put in the experimenter, and we made a raspberry version and a peach version, I believe. And the peach didn't really shine. The raspberry was awesome. And people bought a lot of it, and we all really, really enjoyed it. So now we're making Raz, and we're actually going to we're kind of not phasing out, but letting fade just straight Lemonade Rocket Ship and our other kettle sour Hitch for the moment, and just let Raz kind of run through the summertime. We may do some other plays on it over the next few months because we're hitting fruit season here in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks or whatever as things become ripe. It's kind of a great opportunity for us to process fruit fresh in the back and then make more fresh fruited Berliner Weisses. So there may be some more variants on this, but Raz is basically, I don't know what a traditional Berliner Weiss is, because I've never had one. But it's a kettle sour Berliner Weiss style beer. It also has a touch of salt. You won't really taste it.
Yeah, it's not super salty. That's one thing with sour beers is I'm like, man, that is
it's just
typically
just
pretty
a
salty.
tiny bit.
Yeah.
Tristan and I titrated it. We dosed tiny bits of salt last summer when we were coming up with the recipe to kind of find the right level. And then the sourness comes from a sourdough culture sourdough culture that I make bread with at home. My wife started several years ago, so it is the same thing. I can make bread with it, or I can make Lemonade Rocket Ship, or any of the other things that we make that are kettle sour here.
That's awesome.
So it makes a really, really clean sour beer. It's mixed culture. It's got a lot of yeast in it too, but also a lot of lacto that's clean and nice. So it's a fun beer.
Give me the rundown, just numbers and
These
clarity.
folks can talk about that.
Yeah,
Is it 4.3%?
a bit lighter.
Yep.
4.3%.
Yeah, the goal is that you can just drink it on a hot afternoon. Yakima's super hot, so it'll be 100 degrees here in no time.
7 or 10 IBUs.
It's just, I mean,
Dry.
It's dry. It's
Dry, low ABV, and like the Raz shines, and it's got this refreshing tartness. It's almost like when people come in asking for cider, a lot of us, we'll try to give them a suggestion, try maybe this before, see if they like it, and often they do. It's a great substitute.
yeah. They'll be like, "That's a beer." Like,
Right.
yeah, it's a beer.
Yeah.
Just like right off the nose, you get a little bit of raspberry on there. You can tell on the nose too. Obviously, it's some kind of a wild, funky, fun sour.
Yeah.
And then just the clarity of it. I mean, it's just a beautiful beer all around.
Yeah.
Cool thing about Lemonade Rocket Ship and Raz Rocket Ship is your first drink. When someone wants a sampler, I try to sell it on somebody, or just like want somebody to experience Raz Rocket Ship. I give them a full taster. Normally, like other beers, I'll give them like a little. But the reason why I give them a full taster is because that first drink is always going to be more sour or more tart than the following drinks. So that's what the really, really cool thing about Raz Rocket Ship is it mellows out as you drink it through the 16 ounces. So with other sours or true sours, it's not like that. I mean, it's just you're drinking what you're drinking.
Right. Yeah.
So it's what makes Raz Rocket Ship so refreshing, and I think that's why it's so loved here in the tap room and out in wholesale. Our accounts that do carry it.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that reminds me. I mean, talking about giving people full tasters, we didn't really get a chance to talking about kind of your guys' new glasses and the pour line. I mean, that was totally my bad. Do you guys? I mean, Casey was talking to me about it when you guys first got them here. I think we were here filming, and you just got them in, and I thought it was super rad. If you want to kind of dive into that just real quick before we get to the last section here.
So I mean, we had our other pint glasses that we just kind of jumped on in opening, and we all weren't like super stoked about them. And these are actually ones that Zach has been pretty fond of for quite some time. These are called Willies.
Yeah, I've never even seen or heard of the concept. I mean, it makes sense.
There's a lot of different kinds of glasses.
Right. Yeah.
It's kinda
Lots
crazy.
of different kinds. I've never seen, the extra.
And it's actually
space
really
there.
it's an important piece of the
Definitely.
experience.
Especially for what you guys are doing here. I
Yeah.
mean, I always hear you guys talk about just the aroma that you guys try and hit.
Yeah, so this line that we have here is an aroma / flavor line, which is really fun. And it allows us to be able to pour a 16-ounce beer,
Right.
it's a 20-ounce glass, pour a 16-ounce beer, but have the right amount of head on every beer that
Right.
we pour.
Yeah, I have been raised to hate that. Like you're gypping me. But then when you explained that line to
Yes.
me, I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Like when it's on a full pour, it's like, well, actually, it's probably
is.
more than a full pour.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
Because we're not selling you 20 ounces.
We're not selling you a 20 ounce, we're selling you a 16 ounce with
Yeah.
the proper amount of head on it.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we were coming from with that. With our other glasses, they were 16-ounce glasses, but we really wanted a good amount of, a healthy amount of head on that glass for aroma and that flavor profile. Because it's a really important thing.
Pretty too, as a brewer, you're always trying to get like a nice, I don't know, inch or so, depending on the beer style, but it's certainly like an inch or so, like thick head that sits on that top of that beer while, the drinker enjoys it for a while.
Right, yeah.
So like that was a big part of the reason that like, we spent a lot of time thinking about bubbles and foam. It's kind of hard to explain to people that aren't really brewing.
We spent a lot of time, actually.
Yeah. You don't even do hot tubs.
Especially
But this allows us, to really give off the appropriate amount.
I mean, you're making
show
an
off the
effort
appropriate amount of head.
for those things to come out.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that to be able to take that in, that makes sense. That's why I was so just like, wow, that's awesome. That's rad that you guys are thinking about it to that level.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that part of tasting is also smelling.
Yeah.
And
I always talk about like exhaling through your nose.
Yeah.
Whenever I say try this beer, exhale through your nose. That's just a big thing for me.
And so it's just kind of like layman's terms, the aroma flavor line, but it's nice. We like it. It fits our brand, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So going to the last question, being in Yakima and a big community here, beer and just Yakima itself, what's it like being a brewery here in Yakima? What's that like for you guys on both sides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start from the front of house taproom side of things. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting because we are in the mecca of hopland, especially during the time of harvest in September, when the entire brewing industry rains down upon Yakima.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity selfishly, it's an opportunity to make new friends and be like, hey, what's up? We're here.
Yeah.
But at the same
Kinda
time,
be a fanboy.
yeah, and then also you're like, oh my God, he's in our brewery. What? Oh shoot! Which is totally true.
Yeah.
I've had that moment a couple times.
Oh, for sure.
I think we all have. But so from the front of house standpoint, I think being a brewery in Yakima, it's important that we represent what Yakima should be representing and is and has been growing for the last 5 to 6 years with all the breweries here together collectively. But it's exciting to be on the forefront of that and to actually help put our place where our Single Hill is here in Yakima on the map, to say like we are in the middle of hop country and there might as well be, breweries on every corner.
Right. Yeah.
So it's exciting to be able to be here, geographically speaking, and then from an industry standpoint, during harvest. Again, it's exciting to see all those people. And then our community, I think our place and location being right in the downtown area, it's something like the downtown Yakima is growing right now. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of buzz. Things are happening. So it's also equally exciting to be a part of that as well, and to be able to grow this part of town and to say like, hey, Yakima, come check this place out. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's really exciting to see people's continual reaction when they walk into the doors. I mean, people that, it's really cool to be able to see how many new people swipe their card on our system. We get to be able to like look at that data, and we meet every Monday and we talk about a lot of details that happened through the prior week, current week, the next week, and we get to look at that stuff. And so to know how many people are continually coming, and then know who those people are because they are regulars, and them sit in different places throughout the brewery, outside, inside, standing up at our stand-up bar, at the bar top, and just look at them have just an awesome time. Every single time they come in is pretty incredible, and it makes you feel like you're doing something right.
Yeah, creating a space in Yakima was definitely one of the main motivators for doing this. Like, I wanted to have a brewery at some point in time. Like, this is something I've been thinking about a long time, but didn't really want to do it until the right place, happened. Mm-hmm. So, like we were talking about earlier, timing is important, but also like identifying like where is that actually gonna work and be meaningful in a way that's more meaningful than just making like nice beer, because a ton of people make really nice beer these days. Right. So our goals were really around creating a space that is going to be fun and enjoyed by the community in Yakima. And I didn't expect to be here for a really long time. I've only been here for a good handful of years, but I'm going to be here for a while now. And this is one of my ways of contributing and creating the place that I want to continue to live in and like raise my family in and stuff.
So wrapping up the show, do you guys have anything going on that you just want to talk about? Beers that might be coming out, events that might be coming up? This drops at your guys' 1 year, so that's happening right now as we speak, or just happened when people are checking this out?
I'm currently dancing to a bluegrass band.
I guess the one thing I would have to say is, this year has, as Casey said, wow, it's flown by, and we are celebrating our 1 year anniversary on June 1st. And we're having, there will be 3 live bands. There are 3 live bands. This
playing
is dropping
as we speak right now.
That's a weird mindset.
Or if you're listening to this, you probably should get
You're
your
probably
down.
Celebrating our 1 year is an exciting time. So live music and just wrapping up the year of just looking back and saying, whoa, look where we've come. And also it's a gift to the community to say thank you, people of Yakima, for appreciating what we're doing, because obviously we've poured our heart and soul into it, and it's the least that we could do to throw a big party.
Couldn't do without our friends, family, and everyone that's come through the doors so far. So that's our that's our way of saying thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for checking out the podcast. Thank you for making it this far all the way through to the end. That's actually pretty impressive. If you can leave us a like on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, on Instagram, that would be super appreciative. If you could leave us a comment on any of those or a review on the podcast, that'd be super helpful getting this thing off the ground. This is our episode 1, first ever. Thank you for joining us, and you guys have a good night and safe drinking.
Like it.
Yeah.
Cheers. Like
Cheers.
it.
Cheers to the internet.
Hey.
To the internet.
Cheers.
To the tubes. To the tubes.